Hi, and I want to say welcome to your online Humanities 101 course. I'm Dr. Duncan, and I want to talk you through here at the very beginning, introduce you to what is this course about and why do we study it. Um, really excited to do that with you today. Right now, you can get the book for free. It's a Connect ebook. You just click on the link in there and set up a temporary account. You get free access for a couple of weeks, and that will get you through, several chapters. You're going to need the book for tests, exams. These PowerPoints will help you get through the quizzes, but you'll need them for the exams. Humanities is a very broad term. It is so broad that it's almost anything that you might study that's not mathematical, not biological, like under a microscope. It's the broad areas of human expression. It's what makes us human creativity, how we think, why we think the way we do, which is philosophy, our past, history, what we've written in literature, the social sciences, psychology, sociology, and why we do what we do individually and as groups, and then the arts. This particular course focuses on the arts as a very unique expression of our humanity. It's tied to philosophy, it's tied to history. We'll have a segment on literature. There's some overlap, with these others, but for the sake of this class, we are focusing on the fine arts and how they are still valuable today. Two really important terms for you to get that aren't necessarily in the book, but for your understanding. When we think about the arts or some of these things, there's two categories in which we kind of approach things. One we don't even think about. It's subjective. Subjective is just it's personal preference. It's based on your experiences, your known or unknown biases. It can be things you don't even know why. It's just like we call it your taste in clothing, or your taste in style, your preferences in food. Those things change. Maybe you remember. I remember as a child not liking certain things. I didn't like eggs. I didn't like nuts. Just crazy things. Sometimes baby broccoli. But I love those things now. Now that everything hasn't changed. I didn't like green peas as a child. I still don't like green peas as a grown-up, but I did develop a taste for things like broccoli and a lot of other vegetables, asparagus and so forth. Why? Because objectively I learned, hey, these are good for me, and then I found a way of preparation that I actually liked. I like chocolate chip cookies a whole lot more, the taste of them than asparagus or broccoli, but I eat them, the ones that are good for me, because objectively, in my mind, logically, rationally, I know that they will make me healthier. And so you see the difference there. Subjective is often based on feelings, okay, or just innate preferences to our personalities, our experiences. We have a joke in our family, I had a bad experience with that once. And sometimes that defines everything. And there's sometimes try it again, try it a different way. Objective is when we can distance and separate ourselves and go, okay, I may not like it initially, but there's some value there, so I'm going to engage in it. It happens a lot with art. When we see things we don't really understand, or for whatever reason it's not familiar, we're like, ooh, that's different, I don't like that. That's not my vibe, that's not my thing. And so the danger is to only value things that we like, when our experience with things may be very limited. And part of a class in the humanities in college is to broaden that horizon and at least introduce you objectively to things that have value other than just personal taste, which is important engaging in our world, period. We're going to see some other values, but that's part of it. Is like, I can't teach you the subjectivity part. I can't teach you to like something, but what I'm going to be teaching you is the objective basis for critical thinking and criteria that goes beyond and is separate from just what we like or dislike. What we like and dislike is valuable, but we also know it's a little fickle. It can change, and it's limited by our experiences, so we need to broaden our horizons. Questions of value are important, and they are really why we study the humanities. What we care about, what we believe, what we place value in. And we live in a time that's, being mediated through so much digital interaction. Take us, for example. Instead of being face-to-face, in person, in the room together, where we have that immediacy and we can exchange a smile, or you can raise a hand, question, distance, by time and space. And it's a little harder to communicate value. But we need this kind of connection. So I mentioned already that our focus is on the fine arts. So we typically look at one genre a week, and those are defined. You have a list there, some of the ones that we do. Okay, engaging the arts. So that is, I kind of introduced this a little bit here about the valuing the arts. Should not be limited to what is aesthetically beautiful or pleasing. The aesthetic, which is the study of what is beautiful, is important to the arts. Traditionally, there have been time periods where what is beautiful has been decidedly maximized in terms of the value of the arts, and other times not. We're living in a time, pretty much the last 100 years or so, where the ugly and the painful and the tragic have been brought to the surface as being part of the expression of humanity, because it's not all beautiful, it's not all aesthetically pleasing. I heard it put another way, art's either going to express the chaos of life, and there is that, the horror of that, the terror of that, just the naturalness of that, or the order and design and that we bring to life. And artistic form is tied to that a lot. And the subject matter, we'll get to those terms in a minute. But things sometimes are naturally not beautiful, they're naturally ugly, and so are things in our lives. So arts bring in both. Aesthetically or in our subjectivity, we might lean towards one or the other. The illuminating means casting this light on these values enriches our lives. It helps us to see value in ourselves and in others more. They also studying the arts helps us engage life at a deeper, more thoughtful and stimulating way. We are missing that in our culture. We're in a fast-paced, go, quick, in our iPhone or Android phone, skimming through. You may be finding it hard to already sit through any more of this video. We haven't even been in a full 8 minutes, and the history of humankind is we sit and engage in things for hours, but not anymore. So we're missing things at that deeper level. Art, to get something out of it, we need to sit with it a little while. We need to engage it more thoughtfully. Art also frames our individual identity. We see sometimes we like things we learned that we didn't know we did before, and we still go, that's not me. I appreciate it for them. That's not me. And so we frame more of our identity instead of it just always being framed by someone else. Catch that? We get to start frame our own individual identity rather than our identity only being framed by someone else. And they also shape our collective human identity. We have a lot of differences, but we are all human, and there's shared preferences, and we find other things in other cultures that we go, I like that. One of my favorite cultures to study is Italian. I just do. I can't explain why. I've looked to see if there's any kind of Italian DNA in my ancestry. I can't find any. I just like it. I like going there. I like their food. I like their architecture. I like their history and their art. I just do. And so I appreciate it. But I wouldn't know anything about it if I hadn't been introduced to it. So you just may never know. We'll see. You'll learn more for sure. Well, what does a study of art do for us? It brings us into direct communication with others, present and past. Yes, it's the way the past speaks to us and people in the present, not just through, a video or something. It reveals the essence of our existence. Why are we here? How do we fit into the whole grand scheme? Why are things the way they are? There is a cultural context and history that informs and shapes what we do. If we don't really understand it or know anything about it, we're running around a little bit clueless. Our present doesn't define everything. There's a rich context of history, and the arts are where they express that. It's not just history in the sense of facts, but in terms of humanity. A study of the arts penetrates beyond facts, beyond our personal preferences to the values that evoke, awaken our feelings, that motivate us to do things before we even really think about it. It gives us insight too. And it should always give us insight. Matter of fact, you will see a test question somewhere by the end of this is, what's a piece of art that gave you insights? You saw something. An insight is a truth about life that kind of awakens it's like a light bulb epiphany. It's like, oh, I see that. That takes us deeper into life in a more understanding way. If nothing else, it powers our critical thinking skills. It sharpens our perception. You'll see this in the first chapter, these words in the second chapter. Perception is how we know things and are aware of things, perceiving through our senses. Eyesight is really primary, our hearing, our sense of touch. Those are really main ones that we get information from. There are others. And then we form ideas. That's conception. And we form ideas from them. So it sharpens our conception when we study something and look at it more carefully. And then we learn things and it deepens our conception. So it's all good for your brain. And then we're going to learn the tools to analyze them, and it builds our analytical skills. And from that, we can form evaluations that aren't just personal preference, that are valuable to the world, that are valuable to others. And all of these things are skills that will transfer over to whatever profession you are headed for. All those critical thinking skills that are brought up and kind of like a workout for your brain will be valuable. Look at this. This is really going to get you right off the bat. Not pretty. Not a pretty picture. This is in our textbook, so make sure you go and see. It's called Echo of a Scream. There's a famous by Munch called Scream. This is Echo of a Scream. And so you see how it's kind of repeated, and you've got the baby, and kind of sit. You have to kind of sit with it a little bit and try to perceive with your perception what all you're looking at. Okay. It's very obvious. It's painful, right? That's just a baby in pain, screaming. You see the full body of it, then you see the larger head, because after a while, scream is all you hear. And see, there's all this rubble around. Looks like parts of vehicles or something. I can't pick out a specific thing, but these pipes that look like metal. It's debris. It looks all kind of distorted. Looks like maybe bombs. Looks like in the background to the right, nuclear plants, ash, nothing much natural there, even though it looks like a sky and water, sand and a hill. Nothing green, nothing living. The only color that's besides these browns and grays is the red on the child's clothing. So just very unpleasant. Why would we value something like this? Well, here's a little bit more information. Let me see if I can scoot this over to you. You can see it a little bit better. And this is from our book. So you start with this basic information, and having background information informs our understanding. And having some questions kind of help us tune in. Siqueiros, that's Mexican, 1896 to 1974 is his time period. Echo of a Scream, 1937. All right, when you get a time and a place, then you can kind of go and draw upon your historical knowledge, but here's some background here. We also take a look at the medium. It's enamel, just like paint on wood, so it would be very durable, 48 by 36 inches. Good size, gifted to the Museum of Modern Art in New York, so you can see it there. It says Siqueiros was a famous Mexican muralist. He fought during the Mexican Revolution, and that's where he developed his kind of philosophy of politics, and so his art is very political. He painted some of his works in prison because of his political convictions. In the 1930s, he centered his attention on the Spanish Civil War, represented here. Okay, so the Civil War in Spain, that's Spain, he's in Mexico, but he has his ideas. So about it, and you can definitely tell us the negative. And then there's some questions that we use to see our perception. Sharpen our perception and start thinking ideas about it. distortions, the effect of the distortion of that baby's head. Why do you think the scream is described as an echo? What do you think those objects on the ground are around the baby and how do they relate to it? How does the red cloth on the baby intensify your emotional response? So instead of just giving you the answers to these questions, this is just an example of how we take a piece of art, and art is meant to take us deeper into something, to give us an idea. His were political. All right, another one here. This is in our book, Peter Bloom's The Eternal City, same time period. Only this is not set in, let me get my picture here, in Spain, and it's in the Guggenheim Fund, but it's in the same Museum of Modern Art there. Peter Bloom, born in Russia, Bloom came to America when he was young, and his style is called magic realism. So there's some realism to it, but it's not really completely realistic. It's interesting. Whoops, sorry, description there. Said he condemned tyrant dictators of the first half of the 20th century. So there's two clues as to what this is. I'm going to lift up so you can see the painting a little bit more. One is the name. If you Googled that, you would find out. This is the things you have to do. You have to research. And I'll come back to it. And then the face that's kind of prominent here is not a baby. And if we were going by the date, and then we knew what the city was, and we have the keyword of tyrant dictator, that would give us 3 clues that would add up. So I'm going to help you with that here, all right? The Eternal City is the name for Rome in Italy. So like the Magic City, it's Birmingham. The Eternal City is Rome. So if you take together 1937, Rome, Italy, and tyrant dictators, that would equal Mussolini. And if you saw a picture of Mussolini, you would recognize how this is sort of a caricature, the screen head of Mussolini. He's the tyrant dictator. You'd have to look into a lot more of the history here to see the connection. But I have been to Rome. I know how this is from the Roman Forum, where the ancient ruins are. So you see the columns from the past. You can see to the right the aqueducts that the Romans built. And then part of the ruins are below the ground because they've been built upon for so long. That's why you have these ruins below in the bottom, people in them looking up at Mussolini. His neck is attached, or body is attached to looks like a paper Chinese dragon, and that would be interesting to look up more and find out what that connection is to him. You see an old woman in poverty there. You see a lot of these statues from the past, the Roman past, that are in rubble, torn down. So there's a lot going on here that is being talked about. The figure in the sort of window to the upper left, if you look closely, it looks like it has a crown of thorns, very similar to what the common depictions of Christ, only he's not on a cross here. He is bound, right, and seated. And you'd have to look much closer to see what all was in there. It has the look of a scepter in his hands. It looks like the depiction of Christ when he was being beaten and tortured by the Roman soldiers prior to his crucifixion. And this could represent a lot of things. So there's a lot going on in here. There's looks like some military in the background. And you look up some things about Mussolini as a tyrant dictator to kind of inform that. But our perception, we have to focus in, what do we see, break it down, put together the clues that we have, and then we can form ideas about it, and that's conception. So how to study art. These particular terms are really important. Make sure you write them down. You will see them over and over. You will definitely see them on exams, and I'll be asking you to highlight and identify those. So first we start by learning about that genre's artistic form. To perceive any work of art adequately, we must perceive its structure. How does that genre work? What does it use? And then, so it's different from painting as it is photography, although there's some overlap there. It's different from painting as it is from a sculpture or literature. Literature, the artistic form comes from words, and the artistic form for painting comes with paint on a canvas. It's visual. That's where we start. Okay, so our chapters are always going to start with basic terminology and understanding of that form. That form clarifies or reveals values, and which is intensified, our response is intensified by being aware of those. Values are going to be kind of communicated through, we're going to perceive those in 3 different ways. Probably we notice the subject matter next. I mean, is it a picture of a flower? Is it a poem about death? But you might have to do some background and research, like we just talked about with the Spanish Civil War for Echo of a Scream, or Rome and Mussolini for the painting The Eternal City. So sometimes you have to do some background to understand fully what it's about. But what does it mean? Okay, so what is this supposed to mean? That's, in this book, they use the word content for meaning, and it can be the way they put abstract ideas to concrete images. So we're going to see something, especially, or hear something, and we can describe those, and then we try to, what are the associated ideas? Abstract ideas are things like love and freedom and fairness and justice, things that we value, right? Or things that have a negative value: hatred, tyranny, oppression, pain, horror. Those are abstract ideas. So what the painter or the artist or whatever does through words or paint or play is they want to take concrete images that we can perceive with our senses and connect them to abstract ideas, so we can conceive of them in our mind that way. Okay. Well, the only way that's going to happen is if we participate. We have to engage the art more than just on the subjective level. We're going to have to think about it. We're going to see it, but we got to think about it, and that's what these chapters will teach us to do. All right, so yes, that's the end for this one. It is, back to this slide to finish out. So it's going to be a challenging course in that. I hope it'll be very engaging. You'll get out of it what you put in. It's got projects that have you engage in this. It's not just memorizing terms, although you need to know the terms and how they work, but really engaging in it. I hope you will find it interesting. I hope you will understand the value of it as you go. And of course, you'll like some things more than others, but I'm happy to be on this journey with you.